What's up, AfterBuzzers? You're watching the AfterBuzz TV After Show for Second Chance, Season 1, Episode 11, Gelassenheit. So join us as we break down this season finale, give our thoughts, predictions, analysis, all that stuff, so don't go away.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Love it. See, we're going out with some Lana Del Rey. It's the season finale, guys. Might be our last time together.
Oh no!
It's gonna get a little bit emotional, guys. I'm warning you right now. Love this song. We're talking Gods and Monsters in this season finale, Gelassenheit. Love these episode titles. My name, as always, is Ty Matthews. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, at Ty Matthews PMA, and possibly for the last heartbreaking time, my lovely and talented co-host. Who are you? Where can they find you?
I'm Stacey Newsome. You can find me on Twitter at Stacey Santiago, Stacey, and on Facebook at Stacey Newsome Santiago.
I'm Jamie Banks, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at JamieBanks_.
Hey guys, I'm Nikki Preston. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Nikki Preston TV and Instagram at Nikki.Preston.
You know, that's really smart. You've streamlined your online profile. My names are all over the place. I gotta fix that.
You can do it. You gotta fix that.
It's gotta be one stop, one name, everything. But guys, if you've been joining us this whole season, or if you're brand new to the show, welcome. We want to hear from you either way. If you're on iTunes, remember to download, rate, comment, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. 5 stars if you're nasty. If you're on YouTube, leave us a thumbs up, a comment, all that stuff. Find us on Twitter, Instagram. We're everywhere. AfterBuzz is everywhere. So if you love Second Chance like we do, let us know and let's talk about it. So let's get into this season finale, guys. Episode 11. It went by like that. I mean, especially for Nikki, because Nikki only
I've been crying like half the episode.
Fairly recently.
Happy and sad tears.
Of course.
Yeah. It was great. Oh my gosh. I don't know what part upset me the most. I don't even know where to begin.
Right? Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about general reactions. What did we think of this episode? Stacey.
Very emotional for me. Watching Duval and Jimmy really bring their emotional journey, to a point where they could express their feelings for each other.
Right.
Wow. Just watching Mary and Jimmy kind of take their relationship another step forward, and just seeing Jimmy just become human. It was a tearjerker.
And he wanted to feel the pain. He's like, Mary, no, don't give me anything. I want to feel the pain.
Right?
Yeah. It was great.
Right, Jimmy, what did you think?
I loved it for the first 90%, but then the last final ending I thought was a little unnecessary. So I think it could have ended in a different place than they actually chose to end it up.
See, I feel you on that. I kind of had sort of the same feeling. Obviously, with this, we don't know yet if Second Chance will get a season 2 or a second chance. Ha ha ha. But it's it's one of the jokes write themselves, really. I felt like it did kind of get to a moment where it kind of naturally wrapped things up, and it would be good to go out on this note, but I do get just in case, let's leave some kind of trail of breadcrumbs if we do get a chance to see Jimmy and Mary and Duval again.
And artificial intelligence Otto.
Yeah, AI Otto.
He looks so sad though, where Arthur always looks so happy. And Otto was all frowny and so Otto,
His features were a little bit more pronounced, a little bit. It seemed like he was a little bit more human.
Exactly.
So yeah, let's get into it, man. There's so much to get into.
There is. I first of all, what you were saying, I was disappointed in the ending only because I wanted to see something happen between Jimmy and Mary. We went the whole season.
Right?
All we get is one little peck.
Wait, what were you hoping for? You hoping for them to get busy, knocking some boots and
stuff?
I
did. I wanted to see it.
Right. And to the show's credit, you would think it seems like a lesser show would have gotten that out of the way kind of right off the bat, but it does stand to reason that in a situation like this, when so much is happening, there are weirdo killers all over town. There's a guy being brought back from the dead. He's also trying to reconnect with his son. There's a lot happening and a lot to kind of take your attention off of that. So it does kind of make sense that they got one little kiss in, but for the rest of it, it's kind of it's a little unfulfilled.
I'm glad they didn't, because clearly she likes it, and then she was doing it just for mechanical reasons with Connor, but it's special with Jimmy, and so she didn't. We don't need to see them to hook up to know how they feel about each other.
I guess you're right. I love seeing that stuff. I can't help it. But no, I was proud because Jimmy could have spent the whole time with Mary, and he wanted to be with his family, wanted to find Gracie, do the right thing, and family was so important to him. So he really learned his lesson coming back, because I think the old Jimmy, the 75-year-old Jimmy, or 80, however old he was, he would have been with Mary all day, in bed all day with her.
Heartbeat. Jamie, what'd you think of this kind of whole dynamic?
Well, I kind of remember from the previews, I thought I saw a kiss that wasn't shown, but I don't know if I'm crazy. Do you guys remember that? I felt like I saw in the previews that they had a kiss that wasn't like that cold peck that we saw.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't
Maybe
catch
it was in one of the 2 or 3 episodes
they
that
cut out.
they cut out.
Right?
Yeah,
Or maybe deleted scenes.
Yeah.
Deleted scenes. Let's get that DVD extra
If
going.
we get the DVD, will they throw in the other 2 or 3 episodes? That'd be
I hope
awesome.
so.
I want to see a gag reel when the DVD comes out. I bet there were some awesome bloopers on set. It seems like Vanessa, who we'd had, friend of the show, we had her in the studio. It seems like she might have, had some fun moments.
She really did have some great moments. She was really a hero. She was a superhero.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And if there is a season 2, I think that she's going to have an even bigger part living with Jimmy. Who knows? Maybe something could happen between the 2 of them.
Right,
so
right.
I think they left it open for some great things.
So there are so many points that we could jump off on. Let's start with, let's start with Connor. Let's start with Second Chance's kind of big bad, the big villain. Let's talk about Connor and kind of his obsession with immortality. What do we think?
Well, Connor, like Otto said, is a monster. And Otto called himself a monster as well. But yeah, Connor had such a callous attitude towards life, towards other people's lives, yet he was so self-preservationist. It's like, I'm the only thing that matters. I want to live forever, and I don't care who I have to kill to get that, you know?
And Connor told Otto we're gods, and I feel like that just shows exactly what he wanted to do this whole season. He wanted to be a god, and he wanted to control other people's lives.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so proud of Otto for stepping up, because you do see that he does have somewhat of a heart. Connor doesn't have anything at all. I still think he just wanted to be rich and famous, wanted all the power and fame more than, he did want to live forever, but I think there was more to it than just that.
Right.
Well, you know what? I got a sense that Connor actually does care for Otto in a sense. Remember when he was in the cockpit and Otto said, I should have let Mary die, before he elaborated on it. And there was a moment on Connor's face when he kind of looked a little like remorseful, you know?
Really?
Yeah, I felt that. I thought I saw that.
I didn't feel like Connor showed any remorse whatsoever. Like,
I don't know. I think there are 2 sides to that coin. I think on the one hand, Connor is obviously a master manipulator, and he's going to know exactly what to say to Otto and how to say it to kind of comfort him. But I think on the other hand, there might be this deep-seated part of Connor's brain that kind of relates to him, that relates to the fact that he feels like he doesn't have anyone left anymore. We didn't really get a chance to learn about Connor's family or friends, if there was any, things like that. I mean, obviously there's some sort of family story there, even if we're not hearing it, but you got to think, to be left this cold and to be left with this obsession with immortality, he's got to be a lonely guy. So I think that might be a common ground that they shared.
That's a good point.
Could the facial expression just been him figuring out Otto? He's starting to have different opinions now, or he's starting to see what's going on in his head. Right,
because we do see in this episode Connor is always sort of one step ahead of everyone. When Alexa tries to show up and kind of distract him, he pretty much knows right off the bat that something's up. So I think that this might have been a twist that he didn't foresee. Otto kind of his conscience coming back to the forefront and realizing that what they're doing is wrong.
Because I never really thought of Otto as a bad person. Yes, he's done some bad things, but he didn't want to hurt Alexa. He didn't want to hurt Albert. And even in the episode when they shoot Albert, I felt like Connor was upset by that. Otto was upset by that when Connor said, "Let's kill everyone and blow up the building." You could see that Otto was upset by all these things. So I think I'll give you some credit, Ty. Maybe Otto isn't as bad of a guy as
not a bad guy. See, Otto, he's a misunderstood genius is what he is.
Misguided genius.
Exactly. He felt obviously threatened that the one relationship that he's known for pretty much his entire adult life is being encroached upon. But I think he realized at the end that if he truly loves Mary, he needs to do whatever he can to make her happy, and that's why he ultimately, like Jimmy says, he saves Gracie for Mary. Obviously I think that was altruism on for its own sake, but I think at the same time he was thinking, you know, Mary would want me to kind of to save this girl.
Yeah, well, he said that Mary wouldn't approve of this. Like, she wouldn't approve of, like, everything that they've done. So, yeah, he was trying to redeem himself in Mary's eyes, I think, because he hated the fact that she hated him now, you know?
Right.
But did Mary really hate him? I think deep down, Otto is her brother. If he did the right thing, I think she would have come around.
Sure.
I feel like he should have tried to save himself, too. Just kill Connor,
Right.
and then land the plane and try to work it out with Mary and everyone.
I think, yeah, I don't think Mary necessarily hated him. Maybe hated what he had become.
Yeah.
But I think in Otto's mind there was kind of a sense of punishment that needed to, you know, he had committed these crimes. He had become a monster himself, just like Connor. So I think he felt like they deserved equal punishment.
And maybe he felt like he was a hindrance to Mary's life, you know, like, because she's only lived her life for him. So
That's a
maybe
very
he
good
felt
point.
like he was setting her free in a way by killing himself.
And if we go back even further, he felt like it was his fault that his parents died. So I think altogether he just felt like he needed to die. You know, he's a bad person even as a kid and all the way till now.
Yeah,
Right.
and with him being back as AI, now he can actually help Mary. He
Sure.
can be, like, of use to her now. Instead of standing in her way, maybe he can, like, you know.
Right. And that's a great point. That's a great point that you made, that Mary had kind of, you know, she says in her letter that she leaves for Jimmy, and we're going to jump all around this episode, guys, so strap
Fine
in.
with me.
You know, in that letter that she leaves for Jimmy, she mentions, look, I've been living for someone else my entire life, so I need to go and kind of find myself. You know, that's why she left a letter, is because she knew that if she said it in person, she wouldn't go through with it. But I love that scene. I love that montage. She scatters Otto's ashes. The one scene, and there was obviously a few that made it a little bit dusty in the room, you know, made me a little teary, something like that. But the one of the moments that really got me was that community center being named the Otto Goodwin Community Center, because I think deep down Otto would have really wanted these kids to grow up with kind of a knowledge of, you know, technology, if that's the sort of center that it was, things like that. But yeah, so Mary kind of, and I think that ties in with Mary and Jimmy never really having a full-on love scene. You know, she says, you know, I said I love you, but how can I know if I really mean it? Basically, so
Until she knows who she is.
exactly.
Yeah.
So she goes off and finds herself, and I thought that was a beautiful moment that we don't
I did
really get
too.
to see.
I did too.
You know, this kind of self-actualization and this journey to self-realization. Mary's such a strong, driven woman that it makes sense that she would come to that conclusion.
I really did like that aspect, that she's going to go discover herself and find out who she really is. But at the same time, it was kind of weird to me that she left Jimmy, just because now Jimmy's alone. He's not even with Duval. He's not with Helen or Gracie, and doesn't even have her anymore.
So, like, Alexa might become like his family now.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, because poor Jimmy's all alone. I mean, I do agree with what Mary did, but I feel like maybe she should have stuck around a little bit longer just to make sure Jimmy was okay. I mean, she was crying all day long, spent $1 million or whatever to try to save the guy, and then it's just gonna, you know, goodbye. That's it.
Right. Well, she did. Yeah, she obviously went to great lengths to make sure, you know, money's okay, the house is okay.
Boy, he's got a good setup.
Right.
Oh my God.
He's pretty much hit the jackpot.
He won the lottery.
So yeah.
He only had to die to do it.
Exactly. But yeah, I do feel like that relationship between him and Alexa is going to kind of, I think it's just going to be like a sibling sort of thing. You know, there's going to be brother and sister, these two people that have been brought back from the dead. Technically, Alexa's his older sister now.
Yeah,
And
she was 82.
neither of them have loved ones anymore, so I
Right.
guess they'll just lean on each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. They'll be good. They'll be good. Let's talk about the relationship between Jimmy and Duval. You know, that kind of...
That touched my heart.
Didn't it?
Yes.
It's been getting to this point of closure for the last couple episodes, but it obviously really turned a corner in this one. You know, we got to see them working as a genuine team. You know, that moment at the very beginning, Jimmy jumps onto that car.
And did you see the look on Duval's face when he realized it was him? It was kind of like this, like, oh, it's my dad's coming to save me.
And jumps in, how you doing, kiddo? What a great line. What do you guys think of this?
No, I loved it. I mean, and Jimmy too, they both kind of took turns saving each other. Jimmy saves him in the beginning, then Duval saved Jimmy with the gunshot, and it was just, they were really working as a team. Duval finally said, you know, I love you to him, and even Jimmy was like, you know, if this is my last day, if this is the end, at least you know how I feel about you, and we kind of mended our relationship. So I was happy, obviously, that Jimmy made it, but even if he was going to die, happy that they kind of had some closure there.
That one scene when Duval told Jimmy that he hated him, like he felt like he hated him when he was younger, and you could really see that like knife twisting in Jimmy, like you hated me. I didn't know you hated me, and he's like, well, that's probably the reason I did because you didn't really know us. And he's like, well, I feel like I know you now. And he's like, yeah, you do. And I was like, oh.
that's great.
Yeah. It's the whole point of the show. That's a second chance to connect with your family. What do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, I agree. I think both of those moments were really heartwarming. And now I see why they told Duval so early, or why Jimmy told Duval so early. Because at first I was like, why are they telling him in episode 2 or 3?
Yeah, right?
But now I see because of this relationship and how they really mended it. And I think it's kind of really awesome.
Yeah, the point isn't this big reveal that happens over the course of an entire season. The point is that reveal happening early on, and then what they do with it.
We may only get one season to tell this story, so let's just go for it.
Exactly.
But Helen and Gracie never find out, and I really wanted Helen to know because.
But Gracie was kind of conscious on the plane when
That's
they were
what I
having
was
that conversation.
thinking.
So, like, is she going to be like, was I imagining this? Did I hear you say, you know?
Yeah, because it never did cut to her to see if she was awake, if she was asleep, if she was half awake.
Yeah.
I could see her thinking that maybe it was just some weird dream.
And now that she's being operated on, she'll sort of understand more what Jimmy went through, so maybe it will be more believable now.
Right. Yeah, so what do we think about, you know, we get this sense of closure, and we get these beautiful moments with this father-son team, and then Duval, once Adair kind of discovers the lab and everything that's going on, and on Centric, she calls Duval in, and Duval knows that he can't have Jimmy coming around because Adair's going to be snooping around. He's going to say that Jimmy died, and because it's like we've been saying, if anyone were to find out what Jimmy is or who he is or how he came back, he would be locked up in a lab forever. It would just be test after test.
It would be like E.T. It would be the same when poor little E.T. was like...
E.T. phone home.
The government came in their white suits and quarantined everything, and E.T.
Just imagining like Jimmy in the basket of the bicycle, the sheet over his head, over the moon. There we go.
You know what though? They have so much technology. Can't they, give Jimmy some plastic surgery or something, change him up, and then he can hang out with Duval? Now he's Duval's like long lost son, or not, maybe not son, a little too old, but make something up.
Now I want to put something on the table. I was talking to Nikki and Jamie about this before you came tonight. Did you feel like there were overtones of like a pro-life message in this show? Because Alexa was always saying how Connor threw her away. He threw her out before she was formed. And then you see like these tubs of like these embryonic things in the lab. And it's always, the whole thing was about how they were so callous with life. Like they would like, just kill off their specimens without like giving them a chance to like really form. Did you get that feeling?
That's an interesting point. I wasn't getting any of that from the show, but that's a very, very interesting theory. And I could see why, some of these characters would, even if it's not literally that idea, would hold maybe parallel ideas. The fact that kind of all life is precious, and that if you're throwing away lives, like she says she literally didn't even have a face when Otto threw her away. Yeah. So I could see that. That's a very, very interesting theory.
Yeah, and like Albert Lynn, they just like created him for like their own purposes, but then they offed him, and like Otto had thought he had offed him, and then now he's back, and they just like, oh no, you're
sure.
I mean, it's like this was the first episode where I thought about that when I saw those tanks with those like, forming specimens in them, and then like how Otto was like looking at her, when that was a creepy scene to me. That was a very creepy sexual scene when Otto and Alexa meet face to face.
Okay, finally I'm on board with you. Sexual theories.
I'm on board with you. I thought Otto wanted to I didn't know if he was gonna like sleep with her or rape her. I didn't know what was gonna happen, but I was getting very worried.
Come on, it's Otto we're talking about. But I did get some of those overtones.
I felt like maybe he's a virgin and he feels like, okay, she's not real. I can control her. This is my chance to have sex for the first time.
No, I just felt like he was so like intrigued with what he had made, and it's like, look how well it turned out. It was like, can I see it? Can I see your spot? And she's like, well, maybe this is something we can do in the lab.
Right.
Like it was very like all these sexual overtones making me like skeeve out a little bit.
I don't think Otto wanted to. What were you going to say?
Oh, it was weird, but also I think it showed a lot when he said, I know what you are now, not who you are, because it just showed he thinks she's an experiment.
Yeah.
He did not see her as a person at all.
Exactly.
Right.
And I feel like that kind of validates my whole theory. This is kind of like a little pro-life message going on here. It is a Fox show. Come on.
Interesting.
It's on Fox.
Yeah, I do think that Otto kind of sees that, like, after, so people live and then they die and then they're regenerated, and at that point they're just test subjects. I think he kind of, there's this disconnect there where he doesn't really recognize the humanity that's still there, that their souls, however you want to define that, are kind of still intact.
Yeah, he was fine though with hurting Gracie. I mean, she's still a person. She shouldn't be a test subject right now, especially being a kid.
Sure. But I think given the rarity of that precursor, the fact that her and Jimmy are the only ones on the entire West Coast with that precursor, that might have made it, sort of means to an end for him or something.
There was a moment there when he was looking at Gracie, and I felt like he felt guilty for a second, but then she was pleading for help, but then he ended up shooting her up with that syringe anyway, and I was like, okay, well, no.
Right. And I do think he still felt a little bit of remorse.
I just think in that moment I felt like he did.
I think he just felt so pressured by Connor, who was really at that point kind of the only person left that he had.
Guys, can we all give our best Otto expressions?
Oh man!
I can't even make a fake.
Can we?
He makes
We
it.
get that hand.
Yeah, there you go. You got it down.
You gotta get it's the abrupt,
The think and then the head tilt with the
it's in the eyes. I love Otto. Adir Kalyan has put on such an awesome performance this entire season that I can't wait to see where he goes next. And like we said, fingers crossed that it's a season 2. Now let's talk real quick. It's obviously not one of the major characters, but I was a little surprised that Albert Lynn was off so quickly.
I thought he would actually save Gracie. That
That's
was
what
my
I
prediction.
thought.
I thought that he was going to be the one that saved the day.
I thought he was gonna wreck Connor's life.
I did too.
They should have threw that scene in there. I wanted to see. Well, at the end though, at least we got to see Connor pretty messed up on
We
that tree.
did.
It looked like he was on a cross. You were saying that
Yeah.
Interesting.
He was
Okay.
impaled like he was crucified or something.
We have gotten many, kind of God sort of religious metaphors in the show, so could be. That was a very, very graphic demise for him.
It really was.
That was probably the graphic scene that Alexa was talking about, because she was like, just
I
wait,
think so.
there's
That's
another,
right.
there's going to be something worse. Just wait.
Sure.
And how convenient that the two of them fell out of an airplane and happened to land right next to each other.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
When they landed, did you guys notice, it seemed like Otto was kind of staring off in the sky. Obviously, he was passed away,
Right.
but it seemed like there were some lights in the sky, like green lights.
Yeah, I
Did
noticed
anyone
that.
notice that? I was wondering, maybe that's one, symbolizing the afterlife, or two, maybe that's when he did all the magic with Arthur.
I was thinking the same thing, Jamie, and I wasn't sure. And then, I didn't watch the episode in order. I had to miss the very end, and Stacey was kind of like, "Oh, just wait." So I'm like, "Oh, maybe he's gonna come back from the dead," or I don't know what to expect.
Oh, and then you were with the goldfish, you were like, that's the only message he left for her. Feed my fish. I'm like, wait, fish aren't just fish in this show now.
I'm trying to think, because I think what happened was that with that scene, I think we saw Otto's eyes wide open, which I think there's a lot of symbolism there as well. But I think the immediate scene after that might have been Jimmy kind of powering down because he couldn't get to the tank. So I think that might have been that shot of the sky. It was actually from Jimmy's perspective. Where the lights are kind of
Like
blurring.
it was a transition.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
That's what I
Okay.
think might have been happening.
I might rewatch that and just take
Sure.
another look at that.
What do we think? Do we think that there's some sort of symbolism with Otto dying with his eyes open?
I didn't think that until you're saying that now. You're right. Now he has a clearer view. He can see everything. His eyes are wide open. So probably, I'm sure it could have some symbolism.
Stacey?
I didn't think anything of it.
No, Jamie.
Maybe now that he's coming back as the Arthur figure, maybe it's showing there is an afterlife for him, or his
Right.
life still continues.
Right.
I don't really understand how. I guess if Jimmy can come back, I should believe this, but I don't understand how he can come back as an Arthur type. I don't really get it.
I think what happened is that he might have found a way to sort of upload his consciousness or his personality and just become the AI that Arthur was. So it's not necessarily Otto, but it's Otto's mannerisms and his voice, those sort of things.
And his intelligence, maybe he figured out a way to upload his intelligence and his knowledge, certainly his knowledge.
Sure, yeah. There's an amazing episode of a show called Black Mirror. Have you guys heard of Black Mirror? Mm-hmm. Black Mirror, you guys got to check it out. You got to check it out. It's it's kind of like a British Twilight Zone, so to speak, and it's really, really predicated on technology and kind of, the fears that it can give birth to. And there's one episode where right at the very beginning of the episode, a girl's boyfriend dies, and she's so wrought with guilt that she kind of orders this body that his consciousness has been uploaded to. So there's questions of, is he real? Is it really him? Is the soul intact? Blah, blah, blah. Huge tangent, but that ties to this because I'm thinking that's what happened with Otto. He might have, uploaded his personality. As for the symbolism, I think, and I mean, this might be a stretch, but one thing that I think that might have meant is that Otto in his life was so endlessly curious about anything. He didn't really have the social skills to communicate it with people, but he was so fascinated with how things worked and things like that. And so I think one of the meanings that I took from that is that, this is kind of the ultimate next step, going into the afterlife. So maybe his eyes being open means, he's ultimately ready for it. He's made his peace and he's ready to see what's on the other side and what that looks like.
You're right. A lot of it is becoming okay with death. Like, Jimmy was finally to the point where he's like, if this is my last day, it's fine. Otto obviously was fine. Everyone was coming. Even Mary, like, when she didn't know if she was going to survive, she was like, I'm fine. I'm ready for it. So it really is coming to terms with death because it's hard for so many people, including myself.
Especially Connor. Like, everybody was okay with death except for Connor. George was okay with death.
George,
yeah.
And Jimmy, he said everyone dies. And I think that is also a metaphor and just... it shows that everyone dies, and how are you going to grasp that, and how are you going to live your life?
Sure. Well, and even that's a perfect segue because last week we were talking about the title of this episode, Gelassenheit, which is this term used in the Amish community to mean kind of adhering to God's will. And everything that's happened in the show, with regenerating people, bringing them back from the dead, you could say that's violating God's will. If he had this plan, or he or she had this plan for people, then, who are we to kind of play God and bring them back, in this kind of Frankenstein parable?
The only thing, though, is they can die. It's not like they're forced that way. Like, they were able to kill Albert. So, I mean, if they really wanted out of this life, they could die as long as they have the freedom to do so, as long as they're not being watched all the time. So
yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, once they've been regenerated, they're certainly not immortal. As you said, we saw with Albert got shot to shit basically. And Jimmy, even without that tank, he's only got less than a day really. So it's kind of all based on who you surround yourself with and if you have access to this tank.
Exactly. And then even now, if there's a second season, I'm a little bit worried. They're saying how Jimmy and all of them can be very evil and angry, and Mary's going to come back. And she's going to be like, what happened to my sweet little Jimmy?
Jimmy's going to be wearing a wife beater as a woman.
I know, yeah. We'll get into that in the predictions, but it's interesting that there is that kind of inevitable violent tendency. He shows us we see that clip of those fish, and one just completely mauls the other to death.
All the fish in the tank were dead. You see that? They were all floating and all that stuff in the tank.
What I'm wondering is that during this regeneration process, I'm thinking that maybe these violent instincts are brought to the forefront right away, and then somehow they're kind of suppressed. But you can only suppress it for so long. Because I think that might have been what happened with Albert Lynn. He broke out before they could suppress that, and that's why he went around skinning people. What do you guys think?
Possibly. Anything's possible on this show.
Of course.
We don't know anything.
Sounds kind of like a weird storyline to me, but I think they just want to have something continuing into season 2 to start us off and then see where it goes from there.
Right. I love the use of Arthur in this episode as well. I thought after Otto left the house and after he kind of forced Arthur to delete himself from those servers, I thought that might have been the end of it. But, we see him kind of as a sidekick to Otto this entire season, really. And I think Arthur kind of acts as as the good angel on Otto's shoulders, or I guess Mary, you know, the voice of reason.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of Arthur?
It's interesting you say he's an angel, because now that is kind of what Otto is for Mary. So I think he sort of was like an angel on their shoulders this whole time.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't think Arthur had a conscience or anything. I wanted him to. Remember I said the other week I wanted him to, but he was definitely like the voice of reason, it seemed, in the show, you know?
Yeah, he had a personality in so much as they programmed him to have one, but obviously not quite.
Arthur kept it real. It was like, somebody's in the house. You can't do that.
Yeah, just get right to the point there. Exactly.
Arthur keeps it 100. I want to share that. Just the little. I do want to share with the little Arthur, like floating stick figure guy.
He's cute. He's
I love that guy.
Yes. I liked seeing Jimmy with that shotgun in this episode.
Yeah.
It was like,
absolutely. I do love that. You know, we did see. Throughout the course of this season, we've seen a lot of straight up action scenes, but like I love that moment, you know, where Jimmy and Duval are in the front seat and he cocks that shotgun and says, "Let's show him what happens when you mess with the Pritchards." I'm like, that's dope. That's there's two sheriffs in town. That's what it is.
You know what was just getting me so angry is that Jimmy and Duval, they were going around killing people and they weren't taking their weapons. Instead, they're just leaving them behind. And then the scene when they have Otto and the other people have Gracie, they just let Otto walk all the way down, acting so stupid, and Gracie's barely moving. If that was really Gracie, she would have ran to her dad.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was just, I was getting so angry during that part. I have to admit it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys about that. What do we think about this leap to like these super realistic holograms now?
Okay, first of all, Otto even looked surprised that he just walked past the hologram. Remember, he turns around and they're like, "It's a hologram," and Otto's like, "What? It's a hologram."
Well, we saw it a long time ago when Jimmy did it. No, Duval did it to save Jimmy that one episode, but it was only on a screen, wasn't in person.
Yeah, and that was more, I feel like that was more kind of mapping one face onto another, you know, on a computer screen. But we got Hologracie and Hologarrett, as I call them.
Yeah.
And it must have been very convincing.
It was a little bit of a stretch, but it is possible because they're a super tech company.
With Looking Glass, anything is possible.
That's true.
And that's, I mean, hell, if season 2 deals with Jimmy's violent tendencies, season 3 is going to deal with Looking Glass becoming Skynet. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Terminator 2, everything goes wrong. Shit's on. You know it is.
Now, would Otto help Mary kind of rebuild Looking Glass? Because he helped destroy it, but now if he's back, I think he can kind of help.
Yeah, I could see that.
Bring
I
it
think
to
it's
life again.
as much as this version of Otto can, sure. I do think that that he's kind of similar to the way Arthur was before, in that he's more of a kind of an artificial personality than he is a real consciousness. But I think he might have uploaded everything he knows about the company, you know, so I think that very well could be the case.
And you know what? That makes sense for him to do, because if he's going to like make himself go away, he would want to leave something behind, you know, like for posterity. So he would, he'd want to leave all of his knowledge and his intelligence behind, especially if it benefits Mary.
Exactly.
Right.
You're right. We didn't even talk about the fact it was Otto who technically saved Jimmy because he got the tank working for him. So he obviously didn't want Mary to be alone, knew that he loved her. So, I mean, I was so proud of Otto this episode.
Yeah.
He really did the right thing.
And that was such perfect timing.
Yeah.
Like, I love that Alexa leaves to go cry because she can't handle the emotions, and then sees that tank unlock.
I thought when she came back into the room, I thought we'd see old Jimmy again. I thought like
Oh,
the old,
interesting.
so I thought we'd see him aging and then get into the tank and then turn back into young Jimmy, but that didn't happen.
No, because I think they talked about it would be a much more gruesome process of breaking down if he doesn't get in the tank. You know, I think it might have been either last episode or the one before where Mary says your cells are going to start breaking down. It's not going to be pretty.
When did Otto have time to unlock the code and do all this uploading? Do you think it was in the plane, or do you think it was as he's falling?
On the way down?
Good point.
There's a lot to do there.
Yeah, we do. We don't really get a sense of how long they had been flying after the emergency egress had taken off, and so it might have just been as Connor's flying the plane, you know, Otto realizes what's going on and starts doing all this surreptitiously.
Then again, he always had a lot of backup plans. Like, he had the plan to override Mary, so maybe he had this one in place too.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, you got to think that he might have always had a contingency plan in case that he died.
Yeah, right.
You know?
He's a genius, of course. He's
Right.
always one step ahead of everyone.
Sure. What do you think, Nikki?
Yeah, I think part of it, he did have plans maybe coming back, but I don't know. I think the other part, maybe he's just such a genius. He was able to like come. I mean, the tank definitely. I think that he had to do pretty fast because I honestly don't think he had the right code to switch it. But
Right.
but I'm not sure. But what really was bothering me is Alexa, how she knew all the codes, was able to get into everything. Just because Connor worked on her, I doubt he would give her all this access to know how to run the whole building.
Right. Well, I think
So she said she was spying on him.
Yeah, she had been spying on him
Yeah.
because George was the one that said from day one,
Don't
like,
trust him.
I don't trust this guy.
Because I was gonna be like, yeah, Connor wouldn't just be like, okay, this is how you do this, and you open the gate, and
Right.
you're like, what?
But it does make me curious, like how easily accessible that information might have been, even if she was actively spying on him.
Exactly. I was like,
Well, she
because
said
she's spying.
she did live there a year though, so you
Right.
know, she had a lot of time on her hands.
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah, and he had a company to run, so of course he's gonna be above ground, not in this abandoned missile silo or whatever.
Yeah, true.
So who knows? I did love the fact that Connor and George were sort of diametrically opposed, you know, philosophically speaking, in that one is obsessed with immortality and living forever, and the other is kind of in love with the fact that life has an end and realizes that life has meaning because we die one day. What do you guys think of this? Of these philosophies?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
It's interesting because Connor was clearly the evil one and George was made out to be a hero. So I wonder if the show is kind of saying that George's philosophy was correct or if they're leaving up to our interpretations.
Good point. I think George is correct, to be honest.
Sure.
But no, I think you're right, though. I think they do kind of want us to interpret like what we thought. But in the end, all the good characters do agree with George and his philosophy, except Connor.
Yeah.
Right. Stacey?
Well, I really feel like this show was saying that life is important, life is precious,
Sure.
you know, and finite. So, you know, focus on what's important, like family and,
Right.
you know, all the rest, you know, we don't really have any control over. And this is what this show was about, trying to control life, you
Exactly.
know. And I found it really interesting that, you know, this was I guess a modern day take on Frankenstein, how in this show, instead of the monsters being the monsters they created, the monsters were the creators, you know?
Sure,
Good
absolutely. Point. Gods and Monsters, like that amazing song we started with. Yeah, I do. I mean, there were so many beautiful moments, but one of the scenes that really kind of touched me the most is the fact that Jimmy had made his peace, you know, with this being his second chance. You know, I felt like this was kind of the message of the show in general. He's like, look, if I die, then, you know, I'm at least lucky to have gotten the chance to do what I got to do. You know, I love when he says, let's leave it like this, with you saving Gracie and me helping you do it. You know, I got to be with my son, go be with your daughter.
Yes, that's one of the reasons that I was sort of annoyed at Duval for lying to the police about Jimmy's death, because I don't think it's necessary. Like, I know that he's going to be tested on, but we're saying how important family is, so I feel like it would be better for Jimmy to be tested on and they can still get their family time in rather than just saying see you later.
But I mean, if they start testing Jimmy, they may not ever see Jimmy again.
Yeah, that's a Pandora's box that you can't close again, you know, because you got to think Adair only thinks that he's the CI, but she was there when Duval said, look, that's my dad. You know, I think it might have been Duval that kind of screwed that up when he was so he was in such a panic and he was trying to make everyone see. He reveals the secret that, of course, everyone thinks he's crazy, but now that Adair and all the feds have seen this lab and seen these tanks, they might believe it. And, you know, you got to think that she's the kind of person that's going to be bound to her job, you know, and thinking that what Jimmy has might be usable for the greater good. And so I think that Duval was right in saying, look, you're going to become a circus freak. You know, if your blood is ostensibly the cure for cancer, then you're never going to get a life of your own. But it was heartbreaking, the fact that, you know, that we didn't get a chance to see. First of all, we didn't see Helen at all in this episode, which was a little bit sad. But the fact that, you know, she doesn't know, that Gracie may or may not know.
But what is Jimmy's life now? He's just hanging out with Alexa. Mary's not even there. It's just kind of sad. It's not very fulfilling for him.
Yeah. I think it might be a little bit more fulfilling than his previous life, because I think we saw a couple of those parallels. You know, when he gets home, he thinks that Arthur's still there. He tells Arthur to turn on the TV, and he finds that letter. But it's kind of it harkens back to episode 1, where it's just Jimmy in a chair, surrounded by nothing. But at least now he's got, you know, a kind of a sibling, kind of a companion.
And there's hope that Mary's going to come back and they're going to live happily ever after.
Sure,
so, you know,
sure.
he may have someone in his life, and maybe down the line they can work out a way to somehow communicate or see each other. But right now, it probably isn't the safest thing to do.
They're going to have bigger problems now, because apparently he's going to turn violent.
I know.
Right.
So they've got to...
I know, and then Duval is going to... You know, they've come so far, and Duval thinks so highly of him, and now his whole view on Jimmy is going to change if he's this awful, evil person.
Sure.
Maybe he'll go back to being what he was when he was an old guy. Like, he'll start, like, you know, those bad habits all over again.
Yeah, what happened to... You didn't see him drinking, playing poker. The last few episodes, he was like a different guy.
Well, we saw him drinking. We saw him drinking a little, and I'm glad you brought up, like, what his life kind of looks like now, because during that whole moment where Otto is explaining these violent tendencies and how they might manifest, we see Jimmy, and it seems like he's kind of stuck. Like, he doesn't know what his purpose is. You know, he's at Peng's, and he's drinking, and he's just staring off into nothingness.
No, he's staring at an old picture of himself.
Oh, yeah, of course, that's what it is. Yeah, exactly. You know, and you got to think, is he bored? Is he sad? Is he already starting to become violent, you know?
Yeah, he should go get a job.
Yeah, I got the idea that he was kind of becoming violent sitting at that bar. I don't know what it was. He didn't do anything.
There was a look on his face, for sure.
There was a look on his face or something that he was already in the process of becoming violent.
Sure.
It was the hoodie.
Go ahead.
It was the hoodie, wasn't it?
There it is.
He put the hoodie on. I was like, oh.
He put that hood on with purpose.
That's what it was. It was the hoodie.
It was the hoodie.
Jamie, what do you think his life consists of as of these couple scenes?
I think his life just consists of him hanging out with Alexa at home. He's missing Mary. He's missing his family, but he can't even talk to them. And maybe his loneliness might expedite this whole violent process. So if they should help him and be social and there for him, and Mary should come back from India and love him again.
Sure, but at least he's not living completely alone. You know, I think that Alexa will kind of help him, you know, see, because I think, you know, we've seen him reconnect with his son, and we've seen him with this love interest of Mary, but I don't think we've ever seen him with this kind of sibling figure that's gone through the things he's gone through, that's even gone through death the way that he has. So I think that Alexa is someone that can connect to him on a completely different level.
But then she might turn evil too. They probably
true.
both
That's
gonna
also a
get
good
violent,
point.
you know. I really felt bad for both of them. I felt so bad for Alexa, just the way she was like, you know, they just threw me out and were testing me, and I felt really bad for her almost the whole episode.
Right.
Yeah, you know, this scene comes up in my head. It's really funny when they were in the car and he was asking Alexa, how old were you when you died? And he's like, how did you die? And she's like, I slipped in a tub. And he was like, you should have gotten those bathroom grip bars. They were so ugly. And he's like, well, I bought 2 right off the TV.
Yeah.
They're better than a cracked skull or something. And I'm like, that is such an old person's conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah,
even when he kissed Mary on the head, I'm like, he just acts so old. So old. Jeez.
It's like a grandpa kiss.
Exactly. This entire season, we've been seeing people say that he's an old soul, and that's why.
Yeah.
You got to think he's probably got a dish of like butterscotch candies in his apartment or something.
That's true.
Alexa said too, when he was here, at least when I see it on TV, his sneakers look cool to me. I think they look cool, but they're like old orthopedic, like grandpa sneakers, I guess, that he's wearing.
Right, but you got to think he with his super body, he probably doesn't need those, but he's probably just so used to those.
I thought they were like, wow, look, I was paying attention to them in this episode. I thought they were like, they weren't New Balance, but they were like, what were they? I thought they were Adidas or something.
Yeah, Adidas or Reeboks or something.
Right.
They look cool on him.
Someone clued him into what the kids were wearing these days.
This cast was stellar. I like it.
Absolutely.
They made all of this like unbelievable technology and all this unbelievable circumstances believable. Like especially the relationship between Jimmy and Duval. I think those actors did a fantastic job.
Right.
Yeah, that's one thing that I was thinking about over the course of this episode is that before this, if you guys haven't seen it, watch the show Carnival. It was on HBO back in 2005. That's where I first saw Tim DeKay, who was absolutely phenomenal in that show. Tim DeKay, who plays Duval. That show was just absolutely incredible. It's about this traveling carnival in the 20s. All the supernatural magic stuff happens, blah, blah, blah. It's awesome. But yeah, they were really... kind of putting on such great performances that it did make this universe believable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's always one actor I'm like, oh, they didn't need to cast him or her, but I love them all. They really did a good job. Even Otto, sometimes you think he's like a bad actor or something.
No, it's not that. It's just the character's annoying, which he did a good job.
But it's funny you said that, because when I first watched it, like the first 10 minutes, I was like, why is he looking like that? And then I got to know his character. I was like, oh, he's an amazing actor.
Right. Yeah, it's over the course of this show, there was such a great balance struck between these really kind of adrenaline-soaked action scenes and these really kind of gruesome, bordering on horror scenes, and then a lot of really legitimately solid comedy for a lot of, comic relief. Were there any scenes over the course of the show that stick out to you as like your favorite kind of comic relief, or what you laughed at the most?
The scene in the hospital when the old Jimmy is in the room with young Jimmy. That sticks out to me. That was a very funny scene. I was hoping that we would see that character, that actor again.
Right.
The old Jimmy.
Right. What do you guys think?
Yeah, they should have had everyone in the last episode. I don't know why they didn't.
Big ol' reunion.
Oh wow. There were so many scenes that I enjoyed. I can't.
Right?
Can we go to Jamie? Do you have one or not?
I feel the same way. I thought so many were funny that one isn't sticking out. But I did really like the father-son moments. And when they kind of alluded to their past relationship in the jokes, I thought that was really fun.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. And I love that, when... I loved that very first moment of realization when Jimmy kind of realizes, like, wait a minute, I'm not old anymore. I think one of my favorite scenes of the whole season is when he realizes how strong he is, when he knocks out that guy in the bathroom and takes that suit, and he's just kind of staring at his fist like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. I wasn't too fond of him in that episode because he was like you weren't sure if he was a bad guy or a good guy at that point.
Interesting.
So
okay.
I wasn't fond of him yet.
And I'm glad you brought that up. That's a perfect segue, because I wanted to ask what you guys' thoughts are, or what you guys' thoughts were, kind of from episode 1 to now. What were your reactions to the show then? How different do you think the show is now compared to where you thought it was going trajectory-wise?
I liked the show right from the beginning. I fell in love with Jimmy. I think he's gorgeous. I think he's a great actor. I really love all the cast. Otto, I think he's just so adorable and so cute. Even though he had his moments in the middle of the show, I was like, oh, I really don't like you, Otto. Mary, same thing. I love her. So I felt in the beginning like, okay, the show's not bad. I love all the technology involved. And then as the episodes kept progressing, I'm like, wow, this really has a deeper meaning. I love how important family is to them. I love seeing Jimmy grow. I think his character probably grew the most, although Otto grew a lot too as well. And then by the end, I just don't want the series to end. It needs to continue. I kind of feel the same for Jimmy as I did the whole time, but I think my love for Otto has actually grown, especially after this last episode when he kind of saved everyone, really.
Sure. Jamie, what do you think?
I absolutely loved it. I think I enjoyed episode 1 and 2, but I was so confused why they revealed so much so early, why Jimmy told Duval about his secrets and why all the criminals got in trouble. But now I totally understand why, because of all the action-packed scenes that have happened every episode. So I kind of wish that had been evident in the first episodes. Maybe the ratings would have been better or something like that. But I absolutely loved it, and I hope it gets a season 2.
Yeah, sure, ditto. I really loved Jimmy's journey. I loved how he gets the second chance, and he ultimately didn't blow it. Like he could have totally blown it. He could have come back and been like, "Hey, I'm hot," this is going to be even easier than ever. Like, do what I want to do. But I love
I don't have to pay for the women this time.
Exactly. But so I loved how he really recognized the consequences of his past actions, and he was remorseful for it and changed. So I really loved watching his journey.
Sure. And yeah, like I said before, I think after the first couple episodes, maybe the first 2 episodes, I thought that it was going to be more of kind of a mystery, more of sort of like trying to stay one step ahead of Duval so that he doesn't find out, the secret. And like you said, the fact that they kind of rang that bell in episode 3 gave them that much more time to, figure out, okay, what are we going to do with this knowledge now? The fact that, my dad, who I, basically hated, died. Now he's back. Now we can work through this. You know, is the ultimate therapy, the ultimate family therapy.
I know, what's better than that? Seriously, money can't buy this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And may I say, Robert Kaczynski.
Rob
That's his name,
Kaczynski,
right?
yeah.
Best looking ginger on TV.
That was a handsome man, for sure.
Very handsome
True
man.
blood zone. True blood, full of good looking people. This is no exception. Rob Kaczynski's awesome. To take nothing away from Philip Baker Hall, amazing character actor, one of my favorites. I thought we would see a little bit more old Jimmy throughout over the course of the season.
That's what I really wanted to see. I wanted to see him come back at the end.
I think it should have been in the last episode, but I was actually okay with not seeing a ton of him. I was surprised in the beginning, early on, when they actually had him come back quite a bit. I was like, oh, yeah, it's not really necessary. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, and so, I just think it went through such a great trajectory and such a great arc that we got to see, you know, this Jimmy character really grow as much as he was supposed to. You know, he has that line where he says, "Look, I did what I wanted to do," and you know that's what second chances are all about is righting the wrongs and you know making sure that you do the right things. Or I guess the wrong things for the right reasons in the sheriff's case.
Yeah, now everyone kind of had a purpose, but I feel like Alexa, what was her purpose? Her purpose was to bring back George, and now that that's not happening, I feel like she's going to be kind of lost too if there's a season 2.
Sure.
And Mary, I still feel like she needs to find her purpose. So maybe the purpose is the two of them will kind of help Mary now and guide her. Maybe she needed more help than we thought because she was always the strong one, the tough one, and now maybe someone else will be helping her.
Sure. Well, now that you mentioned that, you know, we're getting to the end of our very last episode. So for the last time, my favorite thing, guys, let's get into some predictions.
Yay.
Predictions. There we go.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
All right, love it. Okay, so we got a lot of predictions to unpack. Let's go with the hypothetical that we say we do get a season 2. Where do you think we're headed? Let's start with you, Nikki.
Okay, I do think Mary comes back. She realizes that she comes back and needs to be with Jimmy, but I think maybe a year has gone by, maybe some time has passed, and I honestly do think something is going to happen between Jimmy and Alexa because they're the only people that are similar, and she's going to come back and maybe feel kind of hurt or betrayed. Or maybe they do a good job of covering it up, but something is going on between them, and Jimmy is kind of like torn, like, oh, I like Mary, I like Alexa, where do I go? And then I also think that he just is not going to be able to stay away from Duval, from Gracie, and he will see them somehow and somehow get caught, and he will constantly be in danger and need to run. And then I do think that his power and his anger is going to get the best of him, and you know maybe Duval will have to do something difficult and kill him or hurt him or restrain him somehow.
Interesting. Jamie?
I think Alexa and Jimmy will probably start to become maybe romantic, but then violent if they both have that tendency. Maybe they will fight each other. And then I think Mary will eventually come back, and I think Jimmy and Duval, hopefully enough time has passed where Jimmy can kind of lay low, and then he can reconcile with Duval and Gracie and Helen and let them know too what's happening.
I'm going to be optimistic and say I don't think that Alexa and Jimmy are going to become romantically involved.
I don't think so either.
I think they're going to be a nice support system for each other. And I do think we'll see Jimmy start to change before Mary comes back, and she's going to come back to a different Jimmy, I think. So I really want to see that relationship grow, but it may not get a chance to if he starts turning violent.
Right. And so I'm curious about this. When thinking about these violent tendencies, what do we think? How do we think that those are going to manifest? Is he just going to become mindlessly violent, or is it going to be a little bit more subtle than that? Do you think?
Maybe he'll start showing some of his reckless behavior from his previous life.
Sure. Maybe roughing up suspects a little bit worse and worse gradually.
Go ahead, Nikki. I just remembered that Alexa still hasn't shown any tendencies, and she's been formed longer than Jimmy, so I don't know if everybody has a different pace that they would go into these tendencies, or if she's gonna come first.
That's a good point. Yeah, we never knew how long she had been working for the Goodwins before.
At least
Jimmy
a year she had been in that building, so it's been a while.
Okay, so maybe Jimmy has a good year to kind of adjust before he becomes this wrecking machine that Albert Lynn was, maybe, if it's on that level.
Yeah, no, I feel like Duval is gonna be like, what happened to this guy? I thought I knew who he was, and he really is just that same old father that I had. I think it's gonna come up gradually and so slowly that he's gonna be like, I thought I knew you, but I don't know you. So I really see a lot of conflict between the two of them, and then I feel like Duval will still care for him, and he'll be in a bad situation where he has to maybe do something to Jimmy that he doesn't want to do.
Well, we still have to explore the relationship between Gracie and Jimmy, because she, as far as we know, still doesn't know that that's her grandfather.
That's
interesting. So yeah, I think to get into my predictions for a potential season 2, if we get that, I don't know. See, it would be. This is a reach, but I like going big with my predictions. What if it gets to a point where Alexa and Jimmy are kind of this like violent duo or partnership, like this where I don't think they're gonna grow romantically, but I think they're gonna become a support system. And then if they do happen to grow these violent tendencies simultaneously, maybe they're supporting each other in that way. Like, look, no, you're totally justified. That guy had it coming. And then it just kind of gradually becomes worse and worse. Maybe they become vigilantes. The fact that they can't necessarily solve crimes on the up and up, but maybe they become like a pair of Batmen and just like beating up people on the street.
And then I predict the show will jump the shark. And
sure. It's just going to become a straight up superhero show, guys. It's kind of teetering on the brink right now. It's going to go full on. We're talking costumes, mask, everything. Frankenstein, Frankencop is really what it should be.
Too much. That's why I like the last, I would say, three episodes, because it wasn't like, okay, there's a bad guy out there, there's a crime, we're going to fight the crime, everyone's happy, end of the episode. Like the last few episodes, it wasn't just about that, it was about more of a storyline, and it continued on, and I enjoyed that the most.
Sure, we did kind of get those like villains of the week that that made it feel a little bit more comic booky kind of. We know about the evil piano teacher, for example, that was only in a student's head, or the pierced monsters that were trying to make other monsters.
Yeah, at least the writers, though, very creative. They just didn't get some average person. They came up with some interesting storylines.
Sure. Yeah. Interesting. So much ground covered in the season, in this episode. I'm so sad to see it go.
I am too. I really enjoyed watching that relationship develop between Duval and Jimmy. Like that, to me, that was the most compelling part of the show.
Sure, definitely. And it was just, we talked about the actors and just really tugging at your heartstrings. That line, we got to talk about that line. Like, we really kicked some ass today, kiddo. And then the response, I love you too.
Yeah.
Oh, done.
So sweet.
I was done for. Yeah, what were the, if there were any single lines or scenes that jumped out at you?
There was one line, let's see, where did I have it? Oh, where Otto said I should have let Mary die so that she didn't hate me, and that crushed me, because I'm like, no, Otto, she doesn't hate you. There's still hope. You don't have to kill yourself.
Right.
Like, you can make this work. And it's so funny because like just they reverse. Mary was the one who was going to die and leave Otto, and now Mary's alive and Otto left her.
Well, I liked when Otto has this realization when he's talking to Connor in the plane that Gracie's not a specimen, she's a person. He says she's a person, and it's like now he respects life, now he gets it.
Right.
So that was one of my favorite. She's a person. It's
right.
Like, yeah, duh.
Exactly. Yeah, Jamie.
Yeah, and adding to that, he said we're the monsters, and I think that's kind of something we sort of saw, and so for him to realize it was just a full 360. That was awesome.
Yep.
And he was really questioning everything. Otto was like, Jimmy asked me, did you get what you wanted? And I feel like Otto was thinking, like, what do I really want? What is the point of doing all this and hurting the people I love in the end? And Connor just did not get that at all.
Right. Yeah, what's the point of keeping Mary alive if she just hates what Otto has become?
Okay, I just had this moment when we see inside the plane, Connor's flying the plane. I'm like, he flies a plane too? Like,
sure.
Why do all the villains know how to fly planes?
I could see him being a pilot.
Yeah, why do the villains always know how to like do all this cool stuff?
Yeah.
That's true. That's a very good point.
He's a billionaire techie kid, so
he's got free time to take the flying lessons. Sure.
And I love when the plane just landed just so perfectly. Gracie slides right out, and everyone's happy and safe.
Right. So, man, where do we go from here? We got Jimmy being potentially violent. We got Duval hopefully having his happy family life. Maybe Helen finally getting together with Wally once he gets out of jail. We loved Wally, remember?
Yeah, I did.
Wally and Weasel. Love Breckenmeyer, for sure. We got Mary, running this community center, with Otto, with AI Otto helping her out. Everything seems to be okay, but of course, all the best intentions always go by the wayside. Oh, what a season it's been.
It has been.
It's gone so quickly.
I know, so
especially
fast.
for you, because you've only joined us for
I
a
know.
couple.
How many weeks was I here? 3, 4, 5?
I'm with you. You joined before I did, though.
No, I joined like the week after you or something.
You did one episode with just the two of us right before Nikki came aboard.
Oh, I thought you had already started and you were just absent that week.
No, and I love this show. I love our cast. I love
Yeah.
Right?
happy.
Oh, that's
What do we have to
amazing.
do to make this show come back? I will beg.
Somebody
whoever.
tweeted us a petition online, so
there you go, there you go,
maybe
guys.
cross your fingers,
Get
sign
on
the petition.
Twitter, get in touch with Fox. Let them know you want second chance to have a second chance.
Yes.
That's the tagline right there.
Don't put any actors out of work.
Exactly.
They need to eat too.
We need more Rob Kaczynski.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't see it past the second season, but I do feel that this show does need a second season. There's still so many places it needs to go, and so many good shows. Let me remind you all. The first season, Full House example, the original Full House, awful ratings the first season. Look at it, stuck around 8 years, and now there's Fuller House. So come on, if you give it a second chance,
I'm
think
sorry,
it'll
I'm
come
still
around.
not over my so-called life being canceled after the first season,
You know?
and that was 20 years ago.
Wait, that's a tangent that could go on.
I am still not over that. Sometimes I think in my head, where would they be today? Jordan Catalano, they would be like 37 now. They would be at their 20th reunion.
Claire Danes was in it, right?
Claire Danes?
Well, look
Yeah.
at I mean, she's got a good career though.
I'm talking about the
Homeland.
character. I'm talking about the character.
Characters. That's the important
So
part.
invested in those characters.
Yeah, exactly. We care about what happens to Jimmy Pritchard. Rob Kaczynski, he'll get work.
Yeah.
Jimmy Pritchard, what's going to happen to him?
Exactly.
Oh, man. Well, guys, whether you've stuck with us the whole season or you're joining us for the first time, thank you so much. It's been such a fun season. Thank you guys for being such an incredible panel.
This has been so much fun.
So much fun. But guys, if there is a season 2, then we'll see you again. But if this is the last time, guys, for the last time, who are you and where can they find you?
Well, I'm Stacey Newsome, and you can find me on Twitter at Stacey Santiago or on Facebook at Stacey Newsome Santiago. What's my name? Stacey Newsome Santiago.
I'm Jamie Banks, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at JamieBanks_, and also on the Underground After Show on Wednesdays. And I'm going to miss you guys, so be sure to tweet and follow.
I'm Nikki Preston. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Nikki Preston TV and Instagram at Nikki.Preston.
So streamlined. So streamlined.
Get it.
I got to take it from your playbook,
You
girl.
gotta make it easy.
As always, my name is Ty Matthews. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, at Ty Matthews PMA, as well as various other after shows. Tomorrow night, we got Monday Night Raw and The Magicians, and then Thursday is Lucha Underground. Very, very excited. And remember, if you're on iTunes, download, rate, comment, review, subscribe. Even though this might be our last time together, we would still love to get them 5 stars. And even though the season's over, make sure to tweet us, Instagram us, all that good stuff. Let's keep talking about it. Let's come up with some fanfic, some fan theories.
Fan fiction would be great.
Get it.
You know what? My fan fiction is that Jimmy comes on this show and he kisses us all on the lips.
Yeah.
Great. You too. He kisses you on the lips too.
This took a weird turn right at the end. Sharp left turn. But guys, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We loved talking about this show, so I hope you'll join us on various other after shows. But until next time, remember, take a chance. Peace.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz
you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.